Valentine's Day 2000, a 9-year-old Asha Degree walks out of her Shelby, North Carolina home in the middle of the night, and she's never seen again. Now, if you're anything like us, you know this case is haunting. Amy and I talk about it all the time. It's just that baffling. But now, after all these years, we finally have some new details. So, what could have possibly lured this shy, sweet girl out of her house that night? And what happened after she stepped out into the dark? Let's recap. So picture this. Asha Degree, just 9 years old, is walking down Highway 18, a 2-lane stretch of road flanked by nothing but open fields and thick woods. It's pouring rain, pitch black, and it's almost 4 in the morning. Not exactly prime time for a kid to be out on a stroll, right? But Asha's walking like she knows where she's going, moving south toward town. She's not easy to miss, even in the downpour, with her bright white clothes lighting up the dark, stormy night. A trucker and another driver spot her between 3:45 and 4:15. The trucker keeps on driving, but radios a warning. There's a little girl walking on the side of the highway. Heads up, everyone. Meanwhile, the other driver makes a quick U-turn, determined to check on her. But by the time they swing back, Asha's gone, slipped off the road and into the woods, disappearing into the shadows. What happened to her after that? No one really knows, but hold on, because we've got a huge break in the case that might finally unravel this decades-old mystery. Asha Degree's disappearance is not your typical missing kid story. She didn't get snatched. She left her house on her own, and she was only 9 years old. Now, most runaways, they're usually at least 12. So why would Asha take off? There's no drama at home, no obvious reason for her to run away and her family. Police have made it clear they're not involved. Zero evidence points in their direction. Over the years, this case has been nothing but dead ends and question marks, with just a handful of real clues, barely enough to connect the dots. But now, we've got something big, and it could finally blow this case wide open. But before we get to the bombshells, let's rewind and break down the original clues. Just a few days after Asha vanished, some of her belongings turn up in a shed along the highway, less than 2 miles from where she's last seen. We're talking candy wrappers, her pencils, a marker, and a Mickey Mouse hair bow, all stuff her mom immediately recognizes as Asha's. But that's not all. There's something extra creepy in that shed. A wallet-sized photo of a little girl. But here's the twist. It's not Asha. Nobody seems to know who this mystery girl is. Not her family, not her teachers, no one. Before Asha left that night, she packed up some of her favorite things, including her favorite Tweety Bird purse. But one of the biggest clues is a mysterious green car, a 1970s Ford Thunderbird or something like it. One witness says they saw Asha being pulled into it, but back then, that lead goes nowhere. And just like that, Asha's case hits a standstill. For 17 long months, it's radio silence. Then, in August 2001, there's a shocking discovery. A construction worker along Highway 18 stumbles on a strange bundle. It's Asha's backpack, double-bagged in black trash bags. And get this. It's found 21 miles away from the direction Asha was walking. Inside the backpack, they find a few weird things. A Dr. Seuss book called McElligot's Pool. It's about a little boy imagining all the crazy fish he can catch. It's from her school library, but as far as they know, she didn't check it out. There's also a New Kids on the Block pajama t-shirt, but Asha's parents swear it's not hers. The FBI swoops in, taking the backpack and everything inside back to Quantico for testing. They've kept those test results under wraps for over 2 decades, but now, finally, you're about to hear what they found, and it could change everything. Hold on to your hat, because this is where things get wild. They've got a DNA match. 2 matches, actually. Turns out a hair found on the undershirt inside Asha's backpack belongs to Anna Lee Deadman, who was just 13 at the time Asha went missing. Another DNA trace was found on those trash bags. It points to Russell Underhill, a Vietnam vet who would have been 50 back then. Russell had a tough life, struggling with depression, addiction, and living on the edge. He was a local living in the area when Asha disappeared. He passed away alone in his apartment around Christmas 4 years after she went missing. But here's the twist. Cops don't necessarily think Russell or Annalee are the main suspects. The real focus? Allegedly, it's on the two people who connect them, Annalee's parents, Roy Lee Dedman and his wife Connie. Now, get this. As far as we know, the Dedmans were complete strangers to Asha and her family, but they owned two nursing homes in the area, Northbrook and Cleveland Healthcare. And guess who was a patient? Russell. When Asha disappeared, Russell was staying at Cleveland Health Care. When it shut down in 2002, he moved to Northbrook. Roy and Connie Dedman have 3 daughters. Annalee, the youngest, was just 13. Then there's Sarah, 16 at the time, and Lizzie, the oldest, at 17. And here's where things get sketchy. According to a social worker, Roy Dedman had some shady business practices, including using his daughters as chauffeurs. Lizzie and sometimes Sarah would drive nursing home clients to the hospital in an old beat-up 1964 green AMC Rambler. Remember that tip about Asha being seen in an old green car? Yeah, exactly. Fast forward to early September 2024, that's when police finally make their move, raiding the Dedman family properties. And what do they find? You won't believe it. According to the search warrant, what they find at the Dedmans' old house is wild. They uncover Lizzie and Annalee's old journals, black trash bags, kids' clothing, cameras, a flip phone, micro VHS tapes, a cell phone, papers with Russell Underhill's name on them, social service complaint documents, Carhartt jeans, transport logs, and a .22 caliber gun. But here's the real kicker. That house is less than 6 minutes from where Asha was last seen on Highway 18, the same route Roy and his daughters used to get to the hospital and nursing homes. And Asha's backpack was discovered just 10 minutes from that hospital. It sure feels like they're closing in, but wait. It gets even stranger. For the last 5 years, Roy's been renting that house out. And the tenant? He told the cops something bizarre. There are 3 rooms in that house with padlocks on the doors, locked up tight just like that since he moved in. Roy's excuse? He said he's storing some personal property. Excuse me, who's sleeping in a house with padlocked rooms and no idea what's inside? Not us, that's for sure. The search warrant doesn't say which items came from those locked rooms, but let's be real. Stuff like those old journals, probably not just lying around the living room. And there's one more chilling detail. A relative of the Dedmans told police they saw Roy digging a deep hole on that property years ago, but according to the warrant, they didn't find any human remains. What they did find, though? You're not going to believe it. Tucked away back on his property, hidden between some old sheds, they spot something that makes their blood run cold. An old green car.
Of a green car, here it is, being towed away from the scene there in Shelby. It is an older green car, we must say, is similar.
Does seizing the green car mean Asha was the victim of a hit and run? At this point, anything's possible, but when police dug into that theory back in 2000, they didn't find anything on the highway to suggest a hit and run. They don't know exactly what happened, but they don't think she's alive. They believe Asha's body is hidden somewhere. But where? Let's go back to the search warrants for answers. See, that's not the only property Roy Dedman owns. He currently lives in this brick house just down the street, and when they search that one, they find more weird stuff. A human tooth in a Ziploc bag, small pieces of red fabric, and a small shoe sole from outside the house. What do you make of that? Plus, they take away several computers, old notebooks, digital photos and VHS tapes, old cell phones and cameras, and paperwork from the Department of Health and Human Services. Roy Dedman also has a DNA sample taken from him. Lots of possibilities for answers there, wouldn't you say? Nowadays, Connie and Roy live in separate houses. When the cops search her current place, they take away a lot of devices. A tablet, laptop, hard drive, flash drive containing photos, a floppy disk, and assorted CDs and SD cards. Now, let's go to Annalee, the youngest daughter's house. They didn't take much, just a BlackBerry cell phone, but who knows, maybe it holds the key to this whole case. And when they search the Northbrook nursing home, they take a few more unusual items. 2 earrings, a photograph, paperwork on Russell Underhill, and a gray Jaguar. Now it's all about the waiting game. Investigators are combing through everything they seized from the Deadman properties, and they're still digging into that DNA. Meanwhile, the Deadmans, they're keeping their lips sealed. They say they don't know anything. They've even hinted that the only person who might have known anything was Russell Underhill, but he's gone, and as far as they're concerned, he took his secrets with him. But I gotta ask you this. If police are right and the Deadmans are involved, could they have been the ones to lure Asha out of her house that night? Or are we dealing with 2 separate events here? A lot of theories have popped up over the years. The most common one is that Asha might have been chatting with a stranger online, some creep who talked her into leaving the house that night. Usually we'd give that theory a thumbs up, but not in this case. Here's why. Asha's parents didn't even have a computer in the house. They wanted nothing to do with it. They thought it was a portal for sick stories about perverts and criminals, bad news they didn't want anywhere near their home. For them, it was all about keeping their lives centered on the good stuff, friends, family, and church. So if it wasn't some online predator, then who or what made Asha leave that night? It's a question that still haunts everyone, and with these new developments, we might finally be one step closer to the truth. Here's the thing. Asha's parents never had any reason to worry about her sneaking out, especially without her big brother O'Brien by her side. He was just a year older, but they were inseparable, more like best friends than siblings. They shared a bedroom in their cozy little house and did everything together. And when it came to basketball, forget about it. Asha was a different kid on the court, a fierce competitor and a star point guard on her 4th grade team at her elementary school. The weekend she disappeared, Asha had a game on Saturday, February 12th. She fouled out and her team lost. Asha was crushed. She felt like she'd let everyone down, but you know how kids are. Eventually, the tears stopped, and she cheered up watching her brother play in the next game. That night, she went to a slumber party at her cousin's house just down the street. They stayed up late, and Asha didn't get much sleep. February 13th was your typical Sunday for the Degrees. They went to church, came home, and Dad headed to work. Then things got a little weird. A car accident nearby knocked out the power around 9 p.m. The kids were already winding down for bed, but with no hot water, bath time was a no-go. Asha's dad got home from work a little after midnight. He checked on the kids. They were fast asleep in their beds, or so he thought. Around 2:30 a.m., he turned in for the night, checking on them one last time before he went to sleep. And then, sometime after that, Asha got up, grabbed her backpack, and walked out the door. That was the last time anyone in her family saw or heard from her. So what happened in those quiet, dark hours that made this sweet, shy girl leave her safe home? And why, after all these years, does it feel like we're finally on the edge of some real answers? The truth might be closer than we ever thought. For now, we're left with more questions than answers. Why did Asha leave her home in the middle of the night? Where was she going? And what really happened to her after she walked out that door? Are these new clues all part of the same twisted mystery? Or are we dealing with a string of unrelated, terrible events that just happened to intersect in Asha's case? It's a lot to unpack, and we want to hear from you. Let's dive into the theories and talk about it in the comments below. And if you love getting all the crime in half the time, hit that like button, share this story, and don't forget to subscribe. Amy and I are here 3 times a week bringing you the latest on this case and so many others. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you soon.